Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon game drive here in the 3.5 million hectare Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. What you are seeing there, and why I'm speaking a little more subduedly than I sometimes do, was two nyala bulls doing a little dance, and we're going to move a little bit closer to them just now and see if they won't do it again for us. We're sitting on a little game reserve called Juma in the middle of that huge expanse of wildlife land, and you're with WildEarth on the afternoon safari. If you would like to contribute to anything during this game drive, be it questions, comments, anything you have to say, suggestions, please do so on Twitter, hashtag Safari Live, or email us at questions@wildearth.tv. Like I said this morning, written post not likely to reach us. South African Postal Service been on strike for the last 9 months. On camera today we have Andrew. He has covered his face rather like a bandit, so I'm slightly afraid every time I turn round. Great news is that Wendy is seemingly up and running, and Brent and Phil will be there. And in the control room we have Tara, running everything on her own this afternoon. That's because Eugene, the genius, has taken a well-deserved rest and is probably onto his third beer by now. Well done, Eugene. Our plan this afternoon, once we've looked at these rather magnificent nyala, is to head to the east of the reserve and just see if there aren't any lion tracks that have crossed in. I have a slight desire to see some elephants this afternoon, so I'm hoping that that's what we'll be able to do, perhaps at one of the water holes. But for the moment, welcome. Lovely to have you on board. My name is James, by the way, in case you were wondering. And if you're a new viewer, you're especially welcome, and you're especially asked to send us your comments and your questions. Hashtag Safari Live or questions@wildearth.tv. Right, I'm just going to sneak very gently forward, and we're going to have a look at these nyala, which are now doing their dance. Now, this slightly bizarre behavior is I haven't seen in any other antelope species. And what they are, I'm sure you can, the one on the left-hand side, you can basically see the huge white flash of the tail, and you can see both of them have got the hair on the back of their backs standing upright. And they're walking with this ridiculously slow gait, sort of almost like a dressage pony in slow motion. And what they're doing is displaying to each other, trying to show each other how big they are. And the reason for this is that they can avoid fighting. If one of them decides, no, well, he's a better dancer than I am, then they can avoid sort of injury and settle any territorial and dominance disputes without physical contact, which is ideal. It's the only antelope species that I know of that does something quite as astonishing as this. The other one is just standing there with his hairs all stuck up and his tail flicked up. They're totally aware of each other. And walking almost in complete silence. And off in the drainage line, beyond the one on your right, there are a few females. There's also a little water hole to our right-hand side, which we're going to go towards just now. where there seem to be some females and a little calf. Isn't that a fascinating thing to see? And I wouldn't exactly call it a break dance, but it's certainly unusual in the animal kingdom. Right, we're just going to pop over to the waterhole here and see if we can't find the calf and the baby that I saw earlier. Yes, there are some there. We'll just pop up onto the wall and see if we can't get a view. Okay, Andrew, I think they're going to leave the water's edge. So we're going to stop here. And that will be part of a sort of loose arrangement of cows that will normally stay together but might split up. There's a young male third from the front, well, excluding the tiny one. A very sweet little calf. It's a balmy 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which for midwinter is pretty good, I'd say. I'm sitting here in shirt sleeves. There's no accounting for Andrew's dress sense this afternoon, but it's got nothing to do with the weather. Right. So as they disappear behind this little leadwood tree, we're going to carry on and make our way to the east, to the slightly more familiar territory to the stuff we were knocking about in this afternoon. Hello Shanae, welcome on the afternoon drive. Nice to have you with us. First question of the afternoon drive, you'd like to know, do nyala do that display all year round? The answer is yes. I've seen them certainly doing it, possibly not so much in the early rainy season, but I've seen them doing it now, midwinter. I've definitely seen them doing it in January, so probably most of the year round, yes. Quite unusual. It's probably not so much a mating display as a territorial or dominance display. Donna in South Carolina, because this is the second question of the day, I'm going to adhere to your request. Andrew is now extremely excited. Donna would like to know if I can display like a nyala. I'm going to give it my best shot, only because it's still quite warm and the animals are probably not moving a great deal. So Donna, this is for you. Andrew will mark me out of 10. In fact, you can all mark me out of 10. So you'll just have to pretend that I've got hair on the back of my back, and what the nyala does is he walks like this. And he looks out of the side of his head like that and carries on. There you go, Donna. What do you think, Andrew?
8.5 out of 10.
8.5. That's pretty generous from Andrew, I have to tell you. He's not easy to please. Right. Plug myself back in before another game drive comes along and takes me for a fool. Donna, I hope you enjoyed that. Right, so we're now on the southern boundary, and I'm hoping against hope that the Styx pride, which we saw around this area a little while back, I'm hoping against hope that they will have crossed back onto Djuma. I know there weren't any tracks this morning. Brent did check, but maybe during the course of a relatively cool day they might have come across. Hello, Rudy. Thank you for your question. It's a nice one. I quite enjoy this sort of question. You want to know how much rain is normal in the area, first of all, and secondly, let me just stop here and explain it instead of jiggling about on this road. Rudy, the average rainfall is about 350 to 400 millimeters, 450 to 500 millimeters of rain, which in inches, if I'm going to tax my brain quite horribly, is probably about, say, 18 inches of rain a year. Yeah, that's about right. And sort of at the outside maximum. The concept of an average rainfall, especially in most parts of Africa, is actually a bit of a kind of misconception. So we do, of course, you can work out an average from anything, but the average, it tends to fluctuate so hugely that to say we get 450 to 500 in a year is not necessarily true. So we'd go through very pronounced dry periods and very pronounced wet periods in a far less predictable manner than seems to happen in places like the Mediterranean, where the climate seems to be a lot more predictable. So here, Rudy, I think to date this year we've had 300 millimeters, which for this rainy season is very low, and the rainy season's over now. But the new rainy season will start in sort of early summer. Now, a lot of people start to think about rain in September because that's when our spring begins. And the clouds build in the Drakensberg, and they promise rain, and they thunder, and they lightning, and then in October they come over this side, and they do the same thing, and they promise us all sorts of things like politicians, and then they don't deliver, again, much like politicians. And often what happens is the first rains only come in November. And interestingly, that's when the impala have learnt, and a lot of the other animals have learnt to drop their lambs. So I think that late November is probably the most normal time, if you can have such a thing out here, for the first rains to happen. Could be earlier, but often sort of early November, late November, around then. Nice question. Thanks, Rudy. Right, so we have some feedback for my little dance there. Yvonne, thank you for your kind mark of 10 out of 10. Rocky Fella, whoever you are, gave me 1 out of 10. I'd like you to come out here and do better. Diane, an 8.5, agrees with Andrew. I think that's fairly fair. And Donna, you think Andrew should try next time. I think that's a brilliant idea. He's shaking his head vigorously. Of course, if we put the pressure on, he will have to do it. So if we have a very quiet drive, we'll get him to do it for us. Thank you, Mr. Rocky Fella. Right, we're now at the far southeastern boundary. No lion tracks as yet. So we're going to head north. Chuckster in Florida. You've got a question about drainage lines. Thank you very much for that. You want to know sort of basically how they function and where they flow and that sort of thing. Some of the water holes are in fact dammed drainage lines, but basically when we say drainage line we mean a stream. But because of the amount of rainfall here, those streams very seldom flow unless we have very high rainfall. Then they do flow a little bit. I suspect in a sort of bygone era, when there was probably much more rain in the area, that's probably what formed the drainage lines. I can't imagine with the amount of rain we have now that the drainage lines would have formed as they are. And so they do flow into some of the water holes, yes, when we dam them. But otherwise they were largely tributaries of a big river about 3 kilometers to the south of here called the Sand River, which in turn is a tributary of the Sabi, which in turn will flow into the Crocodile, which in turn I think eventually flows into the sea somewhere around Maputo. Then just to keep you updated on Wendy is still being a recalcitrant old bag. She's not in fact functioning too well. This is driving Brent into apoplexia and hauling Eugene from his rests, but I hope we'll get her up and running fairly soon. Not easy to fix things out here in the middle of nowhere, but we'll hopefully be lucky. Andrew, do you see the steenbok there?
Yes.
I'm not sure we'll get him, but we'll try. That's it, Andrew's got him. Sorry, I've put him behind a bush. Let me go a little bit forward. They do tend to run away. He's being okay. You've got him there.
Yeah.
Quite a nice picture there of a little steenbok ram. Steenbok. Steen means stone. Now just watch him carefully. What he's doing there is marking territory. He's got little glands between his hooves, as far as I understand. will help him to mark territory. And then the other thing Steenbok do, of course, is bury their dung within their territories, which is a very unusual behavior. You very seldom get to see a Steenbok like this. They normally just either stand still for 2 seconds, and then as soon as they think you've seen them, they rush off at high speed. And he'll have a little mate somewhere around here. They stay in visual contact, but they won't stay particularly close to each other. She'll be watching from somewhere close by. He's not sure if we've seen him or not. You can see him half-heartedly marking his territory like that. I've never seen them do that. That's really nice to see. Now he's even having a little bite to eat. This may well be the best Steenbok sighting I've ever had. Oh, there, he's gone. Can you still see him there, Andrew?
Yeah.
What you'll find is there is a gentle southeasterly breeze, and he would have picked up our scent and probably gave him a bit of a fright, just exactly as he lifted his head there now. And the southeast is coming from just behind us. I'm just going to let him see if he doesn't come out onto the road. He might. It's so seldom we get to look at them like this for any length of time. A Steenbok is what we call a concentrate feeder, so this leads into quite a long discussion. I'll give you the short version to begin with, and then you can ask some questions if you'd like to. Basically, the smaller you are, the higher your mass-specific metabolic rate. So basically what that means is the more energy each kilogram of you will use. So each kilogram of elephant uses less energy than each kilogram of Steenbok. Now, what that means is that you need to eat a lot more energy concentrated food if you're little like a Steenbok, and you can, so you'll eat things like roots, very concentrated or rich green leaves, maybe the odd seed. You'll probably find that they pick up the odd insect as well, and that keeps their metabolism going. Whereas an elephant doesn't have to do that. They need more bulk than they do the concentrated stuff, and so they'll eat it in a far more less selective manner. This is a very selective feeder. The buffalo is another great example of a sort of bulk grazer, which is not too selective over the kinds of food that it eats. Right, I think we'll hie our way along here. We're going towards Buffelshoek waterhole, hoping perhaps that there might be a bevy of elephants having a small drink there. And if there aren't, well, I've no doubt my lonely friend the hippopotamus will be there on his own. There goes the Steenbok, darting off. Just astonishing the speed at which something that little can move. Hello, Dennis in Massachusetts. Welcome to the afternoon game drive. Nice question that. You want to know are nyala and impala found year-round here? I'm sort of assuming that you are asking if there's any sort of migration that takes place in this area. The answer is that they are found all year round. Impala are not a migratory species, so they will stay wherever there is a fixed water. And the same with the nyala, they need sort of less water than impala, but they do need water, so they'll stay in a similar sort of area. The most numerous species around here is the impala, as far as the antelope go, and that is largely because of the amount of water that there is in the area. The Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park is a vast area, but in this particular sector, we're in the sort of western section of the Kruger National Park, and it's all private landowners here. And what a lot of private landowners have done, have pumped water on their reserves because they want animals present all the time. You know, if you're running an ecotourism business, it's difficult to accept that animals should migrate away for 6 months of the year, because then you've got nothing to show your guests. So with the amount of water that there has been pumped in the area, impala have thrived, as have zebra, whereas migratory species such as wildebeest or less water-dependent species like roan and sable have tended to dwindle in this area. Just a lovely, gentle afternoon light here in the bushveld. Hello, Kelly from White Bear Lake in Minnesota. It sounds like a freezing place to be, possibly only in the winter time. I hope it's a bit warm for you now. You want to know, when animals scent mark, can we smell? With the cats, absolutely we can smell it. Just like if a house cat marks or sprays, you'll be able to smell that. They tell me that a leopard marking smells like popcorn. I have not found that to be the case, but some people's noses are different from other people's noses. Then hyenas and certainly things like the viverids, which are the civets and the genets, or the mustelids like the badgers and the polecats, or even the, what I'm looking for, the mongoose, which are a separate family on their own. Even they will, they have fairly pungent odors, sort of scents that they produce from an anal gland, which they tend to mark things with, and you definitely can smell that, especially the civet. The civet smells very strong. And hyena, I've smelled incredibly powerful and offensive hyena smells. But as far as the antelope go, I don't really know. Maybe wildebeest. I'll tell you what, the next time we find an impala midden or a wildebeest midden, we'll stop and have a smell, and I'll let you know. Thanks, Kelly. Did you spot something, Andrew?
No.
Andrew spotted an impala. He's very politely pretending he didn't, so that I won't look like a fool. Ron from Scotland, I see you are trying to test me this afternoon. You are pushing the limits of my ecological knowledge. You want to know, what is the niche separation between steenbok and duiker? For those of you who don't know, and I'll show you a picture when we get to the dam perhaps, a duiker is a slightly larger antelope that lives in similar areas to steenbok, but not quite the same area. So, Ron, a duiker, which is a bit bigger, lives in thicker bush, normally around the drainage line areas, slightly bigger, and the steenbok tends to live in more open areas and certainly is more adapted to drier drier environments. They don't need to, they're not nearly as water dependent as duiker are. So duiker, while they don't need to drink every day probably, it will be more water dependent than steenbok, which tend to be totally water independent, which is quite a feat for an animal like that. But if you're a concentrate feeder, you can normally absorb a bit more water than some of the other animals. So I hope that answers your question, Ron. So in very broad strokes, a steenbok is separated by living in slightly drier areas, less water dependent, and a duiker will live in thicker bush, on drainage lines, but otherwise fairly similar strategies. Thanks, Ron. Andrew's just going to quickly clean the lens. Hello, Charlie. You want to know about why nyala seem to need less water. Nyala get a lot of water from their food, as you guessed correctly. They eat green leaves, they're browsers, and so there'll be quite a lot of water in the food. If you are not water dependent like an impala, for example, if you are water dependent like an impala, and if there's enough water around, what it means is that you can pretty much eat anything and still survive. So although it seems like quite a good strategy to be independent of water, you have to search for food a lot more carefully if you are independent of water. There's always some advantage to one strategy and a disadvantage to another. And then there's another steenbok, and the environment will dictate as to whether or not. Sorry, Andrew's just trying to find a steenbok that I pointed at him. Oh, there it is. Sorry about that, Andrew. I do need to learn to warn Andrew a bit more effectively. There it's running off into the distance. Sorry about that. Safari on Twitter apparently also thinks that tiger, or probably smelled tiger urine, and apparently it also smells like buttered popcorn. I must say, Safari, I've never smelled a tiger's urine, but a leopard's to me doesn't smell like that. In fact, I'd be quite offended if I went to the movies and somebody handed me a box full of whatever that leopard urine smells like. But maybe tigers do. I'd love to see a tiger in the wild. That's on my wildlife bucket list. So you can see we're gaining height here. The northern, sort of northeastern section of the reserve is the highest point on the reserve. Hello Raisa, you'd like to see some spoor or tracks? If we find some interesting ones, definitely I'll stop and show you. I did see quite a nice zebra track going along the road, so we might try and have a look if he comes back onto the road. And the light is good for tracking, you're correct. Ginny, you ask an interesting question, but I'm not sure that I can answer it satisfactorily. I'm going to give it a go, though. You say, is it possible that the herbivores have a less smelly method of territory marking because of the chlorophyll in the food they eat? I'm going to say no, I don't think so, but that I think that they probably can't produce nearly as smelly a type of a substance because they don't eat meat. And I think that the number of toxins and smelly things in meat are far more than those in herbivores, and so I suspect that's probably why they don't smell as much. Might have something to do with the chlorophyll, but I don't think so. Very nice question, very nice thought. Nasty little road, this. A question from Chris about my travels to America and what my best wildlife sighting has been there. Chris, I have to admit that I haven't traveled to any of America's wildlife hotspots. Spent a little bit of time in Rocky Mountain National Park. I think we saw some elk. Watch out there. So I'm afraid I think elk would have to be the highlight of my American wildlife expeditions. But I really love to get to see some wolves and bears. They would be my the things I'd like to see the most. Going to look here that I can see something on the road up front. I suspect it's a deceptively shaped rock, termite mound or log. And it is a log. Right, sorry about that, Andrew. Yeah, there, oh, look at that. There's a waterbuck. That's a lovely waterbuck bull. Let's sneak a bit forward and get a view of him. Now, this is an animal that does smell. Smells very musky. They say that has to do with predator avoidance, but lions don't necessarily avoid killing waterbuck. Some impalas to the left, but let's stick on to the Wasserbok. I'm not going to chase him, he's going to run away. He'll come out maybe into a bit of a clearing there. There we go. There he is. He's a big old bull, that. Not a particularly confiding individual. But we're not far from the water, so let's pop on to there and see where we're going. See what's come down to drink. And if I like to touch base with my lonely friend, the hippo there. It always makes me happy to see him, and I feel some sense of solidarity when I see him. Another waterbuck through there, Andrew, with the impala. Sorry about that. That's quite nice. There we go. Beautiful shot of the... You'll find these... A waterbuck bull like this will hang around with the impala, mainly because it's obviously great for vigilance. So the impala are extremely good at seeing predators, and so a waterbuck bull like this will enjoy hanging around with a group of them, so that he doesn't have to look around so carefully. He can find something to eat. And you find single wildebeest bulls do exactly the same thing. And they don't compete with each other. They have sort of totally different trophic niches or feeding niches. I hope you can hear the sound of them moving through the bush. It's just a lovely sound. Right, let's carry on a little bit. If you do hear a slapping sound, that's me hitting my ear because the number of flies in the area has suddenly ramped up exponentially. Andrew very cleverly brings himself a little mouth and face cover, which makes him look like a bandit from the Old West, but probably is quite effective against the flies. He's nodding vigorously. Aged 6 in Dayton Children's Hospital. You want to know, and this is a very good question, what the yuckiest insect I've ever eaten by mistake is? Well, that is a very easy answer to give you, Keith. While eating dinner, and this happened more than once, one evening or a few evenings during the summertime, in this area we get a huge spray of these black, what we call stink bugs. And they're little black bugs that if you threaten them in any way, release a disgusting smelling sort of toxin. And I've had it on numerous occasions where one of these bugs, no matter how careful I've been, has landed in my food, and I've put it in my mouth and bitten right into the disgusting stink bug. And I've then had to cover my mouth, leave the table, run away to the bathroom and spit everything out. Obviously you can't do that in front of your guests. Thank you, Keith. So the big thing to avoid out here in the summer is the black stink bug in your food. Yeah. Quite close to the water now. Hello Kathleen, a nice question again. Do we get wild berries in Africa? The answer is yes, we do. Not quite like you do in higher climes. I'm not sure that they can be truly described as berries. As far as I understand it, and I might be wrong here, the strict definition of a berry would be a sort of winter agglomeration of fruits that I think they come in the winter time. But basically we don't have those, but we do have fruits that certainly resemble berries. The guarri bush is the most obvious one, and it produces quite a delicious little, it looks like a sort of miniature blackberry. In the summertime. Doesn't taste particularly delicious. At least the pip doesn't taste particularly delicious. But that's the most obvious one. And then we get the whiteberry bush, which produces, these are all summer fruits, produces a delicious tasting whiteberry. It's like a sweet pea, it's quite nice. What other berries do we get? Those are the sort of most berry-like fruits that we find here. Buffalo down here. So can you just try and spot them so we can have our little moment of discovery there? Can you see them there? Can you see them, Andrew? Right across the other side of the dam. Andrew's just going to show you what I saw. Well done. Quite a nice shot. So the reason I stop here and don't just drive up there and sort of show them to you is that when you're walking through the bush, especially when you're walking on foot, it's very important that you maintain what we call 360-degree awareness. So you need to be looking around you all the time. It's not necessarily dangerous, but you don't want to surprise an animal like that, especially if he's sleeping next to the water, because he might feel threatened and bash you, which you don't want to be bashed by a buffalo. Very unpleasant. So I'm just showing you there the kinds of things that we try and keep a lookout for if we were on foot, especially in the bush. We'll try and get a bit closer around there. Nice shot, Andrew. Oh, and my lonely friend, the hippopotamus, is still there, alone. Poor fellow. Nothing but smelly old buffalo to keep him company. Rudy, you ask an interesting question, and I'm just going to stop here and I'll tell you a little bit of a story behind it. Side of the tree, Andrew. How's that? It's not going to work for you, is it? There you go. Sorry. Poor old Andrew has to deal with me. It's not easy for him. There we go. So you can see off some buffalo, and then Andrew will show you my lonely friend, the hippopotamus. Rudy, your question is, when I go away for a while, when I come back, do my spotting senses need some fine tuning or honing? The answer is yes, they do to a certain extent, but it was quite interesting to me. A few years ago, I was living in Johannesburg at the time, teaching the guitar, which is another story in itself. But I was asked to take a walk up in the northern Kruger National Park at a place called Pafuri, and I was quite nervous of this, and I redid my rifle training tests and my first aid. Oh, look at that! You get that? Bad luck. Very unpredictable event there. The hippo just had a yawn, just as Andrew went off it. Anyway, and I was worried about that I wouldn't be able to pick up the animals the same way that I used to. And it was funny how easily it came back, Rudy. I think it's just, once you learn it, I'd hesitate to use the cliche like riding a bicycle, but there is a certain element of that where your senses or your natural instinct to look around and be vigilant and look under each bush and in each tree certainly does seem to come back pretty easily. So a very peaceful scene here. Very sort of, we haven't got the anticipation of the dusk just yet. Hello, Patty in Michigan. There seems to be quite a large attempt there to stump me with very difficult and excellent questions. You want to know about prion diseases such as mad cow disease, and do we get it in this area? Patty, as far as I'm aware, and I may be wrong here, mad cow disease has never come to the Kruger Park. There have certainly been episodes of foot and mouth that we have to be extremely careful of when they get into the domestic stock outside the reserve. They can affect the wild stock too, like these buffalo especially. As far as I know, mad cow disease hasn't been here, and I really couldn't tell you, I'm afraid, if it would affect a wild buffalo like this. The major diseases here, of course, are corridor disease and bovine tuberculosis, which apparently affects these buffalo, but they don't seem to be, I mean, certainly numbers of buffalo haven't been adversely affected by TB. They may just be sort of fairly banal carriers of it. There don't seem to be a great deal of elephants streaming down to this waterhole. So I don't think we'll spend too much longer here. But to say to that hippo, we saw a whole lot of hippo, not to the hippo, about the hippo. We saw a whole lot of hippo this morning at Arathusa and a much larger dam. Nicer grazing areas around it for hippo, a bit more vegetation in the water to give them some shade. And so I suspect, as I have said before, that this is a young bull who is in need of just sort of spending some time getting big and strong, and he will then probably go and try and take a territory eventually. Otherwise, he's going to spend a very lonely life here in this waterhole. So, Lynn in New Hampshire, you asked about why this poor hippopotamus is on his own. I think that's pretty much why. I would guess that he's a young bull who's been tossed out of a little pod by a dominant bull, and he's come and, he's sort of seeking refuge here until he's big enough to take his own territory. The other possibility, and I've never seen him out of the water, so I couldn't tell you this. I'm just going to have a quick look with my powerful binoculars. The other possibility is that he's an old bull who's been tossed out of a pod and is living out the end of his days here in this waterhole. But I don't think that that's the case. Poor old boy. I'd like to come and check on him once a day at least, see if he's found a friend. Let him know someone cares, Right, so very peaceful afternoon. Very strong sense of that lovely African wilderness peace that we get. That's the main reason I live out here, for this and the smells and the sounds. And so I think we'll press on gently from here. Pamela, you'd like to know if bovine tuberculosis can in fact infect human beings. No, not as far as I know. Bovine tuberculosis only affects these sorts of animals, or bovids, and some of the cats, of course. But I think as far as we're concerned, we're pretty safe from it. Not the same as our TB. Okay, here we go. John Boy, a lovely suggestion that we call this hippo the Bachelor of Biffle's Hook. I think we might just do that. Right, we're going to head down southerly direction again towards the Umlulwane drainage line. If we do lose signal, it will be brief, and then Jiga will, unlike her friend Wendy, his friend Wendy, will come back. Hi Charlie again, I think it's again, unless you're a different Charlie. You want to know about TB in lions or other cats? Yes, it definitely does affect the cats. They do pick it up from the buffalo. We're not entirely sure as to what effect that has on population numbers. It probably weakens the lions. It probably means they don't live quite as long, but there was a great fear many years back that the TB was going to wipe the lions out. And that certainly hasn't happened. As far as I know, lion numbers in the Kruger Park are not that adversely affected by it. But certainly they do get it, and I think possibly, especially, a bit like with human beings, if you're immune compromised, or if a lion is immune compromised, or is perhaps, very hungry, or a lot of heat stress, or territorial fights, then I think a disease like the TB will probably affect them far more than if they were healthy and strong and well fed. Hello, Jimelin on email. Thank you for your email. We do appreciate the emails and the tweets. And for those of you who've posted questions, sorry about that. You want to know, and it's quite an interesting question, you want to know, what about those, you say you've seen pictures or videos of people in game parks with animals sitting on the bonnet. I know the sorts of things you're looking at. This doesn't happen in a place like the Kruger. Normally, where you've seen those sorts of pictures, it's probably been a cheetah on the bonnet of a vehicle in somewhere like the Masai Mara or the Serengeti, where the vehicle is often the only high point that they can get to. So normally they'd sit on a termite mound and survey the landscape, but the vehicle provides a very nice sort of substitute. In truly wild areas, that's the only time I've seen it happening. I've certainly never heard of it happening in the Kruger National Park, where animals are generally pretty fearful of cars. They will walk past them, but they don't jump onto them. I've had one incident where a leopard has jumped onto my car, but that was a totally abhorrent sort of situation where it was being threatened by a wild dog, and that's why it did it. And it certainly didn't approach the people in the back of the car, jumped off the car again. So I hope that answers your question. be able to start the car. There we go. Phew. We wouldn't have had a huge amount to talk about in this little area. Hello, Susan in the Netherlands, also on the email, questions@wildearth.tv, and also Benjamin. I'm going to answer your questions in parallel. Susan, you want to know, are there enough hippos here to prevent inbreeding? Remember that we're only operating on about 1,500 hectares of land, which is not huge. And there are dams or water holes around with larger pods, like the one we saw this morning, where there were about 10 hippos. But they're all part of a much larger population that will concentrate in the rivers mainly, or the water holes closer to the rivers, near the Sand River. And yeah, there are plenty of hippopotamus around to prevent inbreeding. And one of the ways that inbreeding is prevented is by young bulls being excluded from the pods where they were born, so that they don't breed with their sisters or their mothers. And they then go and have to find another pod of unrelated females. And Benjamin, like most animals out here, when they leave the herd, it's just as they sort of hit puberty, as they go through adolescence, they start to behave in a way that is sort of unacceptable. So in that way, they are very like human children. Human beings 100 years ago, when they turned 18, were pretty much expected to be independent. These days, our parents, thankfully, are a lot more tolerant of us, and we can hang about for a bit longer. But absolutely, there's a very similar situation where once adolescence has occurred, and boys start to exert themselves. So, I mean, you get that sort of teenage phase in boys, where they turn 15 or 16 or 17, and they become quite boisterous. They start testing themselves. They start testing their strength, they start testing against authority. It's exactly the same in the animal kingdom, especially with elephants and especially with hippo. That's a lovely question, Benjamin. I haven't actually thought of it like that before. It seems that Wendy, I'm afraid, is still in a state of recalcitrant sulk. So for the moment, you're stuck with me. Andrew has spotted something. I'm just going to... What have you seen, Andrew? Oh, some dwarf mongoose. Oh, brilliant. Well spotted. Okay, while I take this next question, I'm just going to let Andrew focus in on the termite mound there and hope that those dwarf mongoose pop their heads out. Lots of questions of while Andrew just waits for those dwarf mongoose. They'll become comfortable with us there, then they're starting to pop their heads up. That's wonderful. Great spot, Andrew. Asking about the Styx Pride and whether or not we've heard or seen them or in the last few days. Last update was that they killed a wildebeest on the reserve south of us, Cheetah Plains. And then I think they've been knocking about on Chitwa and possibly around Nkoro, which is all sort of part of the same sort of area. And that's where they are at the moment. They haven't crossed back onto Djuma, and that's what I was hoping to find as we were driving along the southern boundary this afternoon. Now these dwarf mongoose, as I said the other day, have a fairly sort of a Gallic lifestyle. So they are they don't like to work too hard. They like to take it easy. They get up when the sun is well up, and only when it's shining on their little termite mound, so that they can bathe in the sun and groom themselves. Then they go off for a leisurely breakfast, followed by a fairly leisurely lunch, which then leads into tea and some supper, before they head back down the mound by sunset. So they're all now returning home and just lurking about there until the sun sets, and then they'll go back inside. And there's a drongo flying close by. I'm not going to attempt to get Andrew to shine on him because he'll disappear. But they like to follow the dwarf mongoose, as do the hornbills, and they act as a sort of early warning system for each other. You've got a picture there, Andrew. They're popping in and out.
I think they've all run off.
Okay, they've all disappeared. So we'll carry on along this road. On we go. We drove into a hole, made Andrew quite upset. Sorry about that. So now that our elephant plan has failed at Buffelshoek, I think what we'll try and do is head down towards so is kind of the other end of the reserve, but we're going to do it anyway, towards Treehouse Dam, and see what we can find that end, but we'll hopefully find some delights on the way. Andrew, what chances of tracking that batalier there? Yeah, I'm going to really test Andrew here. There's a lovely sighting of a female batalier, and if she stays in the sort of clear sky she's in now, we'll get quite a nice view of her, I hope. She's in there somewhere, probably a bit up. Sorry, I'm really testing Andrew quite badly here. It's not an easy thing to do. Can you see her?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, and he's got it. Look at that. That's brilliant. Well done. Okay, so quickly, you can see purely white underneath the wings there, as she disappears, and that means she's a female. The males have got a half black stripe underneath the wings there. Oh, come on, turn round. After all that. You can also see from that little cameo that we got from her that she was doing that sort of a rocking flight. So they're renowned for doing a sort of rocking flight because the tail is so short, and so they're very unstable when they fly. Hello, Janet in Dallas. Also a nice question. Thank you for it. You want to know about malaria prophylaxis. Apparently you've been out here, which is very good. And I hope everyone else watching will be able to come out here one day too. You want to know, apparently you were put on quite some fairly severe malarial prophylactics, and you want to know how we deal with them. The answer is that we don't. We don't take any form of prophylaxis out here. You can't really live in an area and take the prophylactics at the same time. You're doing it short term, it's fine, but long term it's not a great idea. This is not a particularly high risk area. I've been in the area for 10 years and haven't had it, touch wood, and hopefully won't ever get it. Some people have had it quite often in the area. So if you do live permanently in an area like this, normally what we do is we just spray ourselves with mosquito repellent come the summertime, in the summer evenings, and then in the winter time we don't really worry too much because there aren't many mosquitoes around. The major things to worry about with malaria are there lots of people around? Because remember that the malaria parasite has got to have two hosts, and that's the mosquito and the people, so it doesn't occur without both in the same area. So on these game reserves, it tends to be fairly uncommon, but outside of the reserves in the villages, it's much more prevalent. But certainly not as bad as in some areas like Zambia, northern Zambia, where it can be a bit worse. Hello, Wendy in St. Petersburg in Florida. Nice question. Do lions ever eat vegetation or fruits? They certainly eat grass to line their stomachs if they're not feeling so well, just like a domestic cat would. Do they eat fruit? I've never seen a lion eat fruit, but it's possible they might, and they might, especially in desert areas, they may well bite into something called a tsama melon, which is a fairly bitter and foul tasting fruit, but it's got quite a lot of water in it. So a desert adapted lion may eat something like that in order to get moisture. Hello, Debbie in Lakewood, New Jersey. You want to know about the Styx Pride again. You said that you thought there were more than 2 females in the Pride. As far as I'm aware, there are. As far as I'm aware, there are at least 5. I have never seen the other 3. But you thought maybe some of them had been killed. It'd be great if some of the viewers could tell me. I don't know of any that have been killed. But if anybody has other information, it'd be great to hear from you. Thank you. Remember, hashtag Safari Live if you've just joined us, or questions at wildearth.tv if you're on the email. We love to hear from you, and I especially love to learn information from those of you who've been virtually driving around this reserve for much longer than I have. I'm still looking for some tracks, hoping that we might be able to find some that the camera can pick up. Nothing here, I'm afraid. Andrew, if you see one, please shout.
All right.
And I'll happily stop. You see something that you think the camera will pick up. Hello, Joanne from Arizona. Nice bird question here. You want to know, do we get the African stone chat in this area? Because your field guide says that we should, and you've never heard them here. The answer is, in this general vicinity, yes. On Djuma, probably not. They need more open areas with little rocky outcrops. They tend to occur on what we call gabbro soils, or soils derived from gabbro rocks. So further in the south of the reserve, yes, I've seen them, and possibly in the Manuleti just north of us as well. But on Djuma, probably not. That's the African stone chat. I'll just find a little picture for those of you who don't know what he looks like. Showing obviously some immense skill being able to drive and do this at the same time and knock Andrew's head off. Never a guarantee, that one though. Oh, wrong page. I'm at the chats. Hang on, let me stop and do this. African stone chat. There he is. Okay, so he's number 2. Andrew, is that sun in your way? How's that?
That's good.
Let me get in there. He's number 2 there. That's the male, and the female slightly less colourful. And it says here, usually in pairs in a wide variety of open grassland habitats near marshes, flays, dams, streams, roadsides, perching on some low scrub, blah, 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 blah. But the most important thing there is in open grasslands. And as you can see here, not a lot of those around. But there are, in the Sabi Sands, there are some open grasslands, and that is indeed where I have seen them here. There are some tracks of a leopard further the other side of the reserve. I'm going to start moving a little bit faster and just see if we can't go and help some of the other rangers track the leopard there. Ooh, sorry, not a leopard, but some nyalas. If you can hear that crunching noise. They're eating something that's crunching. Odd. I think it's probably the pods. There's a scraggly sort of knobthorn bush where they're eating, and I suspect it's the pods from that knobthorn tree. No, it's not. No! That's incredible! Did you get that, Andrew? I don't know if you managed to get it. Try and pick up the bull there. He's chewing a piece of tortoise carapace. Obviously a tortoise has died there and been smashed up, and they're eating the shell. That is absolutely amazing. I wonder if you can hear that noise. So I can only think they're doing that for the calcium that it provides. The soil here apparently is fairly calcium poor. So perhaps they know that they're a little bit nutrient deficient. Isn't that amazing? And I mean, they're not just picking it up and playing it with it, they're eating and swallowing it. That calcium, of course, will be crucial for bone development. It probably goes into their hair and their fur, definitely their horns. And their hooves, of course, as well. That really is truly spectacular to see. I'd love to know if anybody has seen that before. Look at them salivating away at the delicious nature of that tortoise shell. And while we watch this rather stunning nyala sighting, the bad news is that Wendy has gone into a deep sulk and will not be joining us this afternoon. So it's just me, I'm afraid. And Andrew, of course. Let's not forget Andrew. That really is really special to see. Even a little one. Hearing a squirrel alarm calling off to the right-hand side there. But it's a fairly half-hearted alarm call. Look at the way the sun... And the sound of the crunching of it is just amazing. Right, well, let us leave these nyalas to their tortoise shell and make our way into the glory of the setting sun. Andrew and I have made something of a speciality of finding great sunsets, so we'll try and do the same again today. So thank you, Nigel, for your confirmation of the Styx Pride makeup. Apparently you say those two with the young cubs have broken away from the main Styx Pride, which now consists of 2 females and 2 sub-adult lionesses. Excellent, thanks, Nigel. So that will happen from time to time. They may join up again at some stage. They may just split up, depending on pressure from other lions. And prey availability, of course. Andrew, please spot an elephant.
Try my best.
Nyala for days here. Now this is where we spotted Mvula yesterday morning. He's moved substantially from here. Hello, Dennis from Lakeville, Massachusetts. You ask a good question. Was it a leopard tortoise? I should have said. Yes, it was a leopard tortoise carapace that the nyala were eating. The only other tortoise we get out here is something called a Speaks hinged tortoise. And that's got a little hinge on the underside of the shell, on the plastron they call that. Little hinge at the bottom, which means that they can more securely pull their legs into the shell. The only other chelonids, as they're called, which are the shelled animals, the reptiles, we get are the two terrapin species, the marsh terrapin and also a hinged terrapin. Oh, that's got a little hinge on its, sorry, that's the one with the hinge on its plastron. The Speaks hinged tortoise has got one on his, on the carapace. Very rare though. I'll try and find one if we can see one. Hello, Gillian, Wisconsin. Nice comment. You said that the nyalas are probably seeking out the extra calcium because they feel a craving for it, and I think that's absolutely correct. They have a. I think if we human beings weren't, or for those of us who haven't poisoned our bodies quite to the extent that we have, we'd probably also have those cravings, and I'm sure some people with relatively pure physiologies probably do have those cravings for nutrients and know where to get them. Unfortunately, these days that's seldom in our food. Hello, Genevieve in New York. You'd like to know if I've noticed a difference in the sound that the grass makes as it's dried out compared with in the summertime, perhaps. Absolutely. I love the sound of the grass at this time of year. And I also love the fact that it normally kicks up puffs of dust, which then, when the sun is shining at the angle that it is now, tends to create a very sort of lovely golden dusty look about the place. Okay, I've just spotted a tree that I don't necessarily know. I'm just going to get Andrew to shine. And it doesn't necessarily mean that tracking animals is any easier in this sort of dry grass. Certainly with the leaves, though. The leaves do crunch underfoot more this time. So if you're tracking an animal, it might make it a bit easier. I'm just going to go and check this bush. Andrew, don't steal the car. Yeah. Right. I do know what it is, but I'm not sure that you do. So we're going to have an almost impossible tree quiz now. This is the tree. Your clues are that it has a relative with very similar shaped leaves. They're much larger though. And that relative also likes to grow on termite mounds. That's all you're getting. I'm going to put it on the dashboard, and Andrew can let you see it while we drive along.
The light's not very good.
The light's not great.
But it's supposed to be a challenge.
It's supposed to be a challenge, like you say, and I've yet to find I've once managed to do an almost impossible tree quiz that no one could answer. For those who've just joined us, welcome to WildEarth. If this is your first time you've ever joined us, especially welcome to WildEarth. My name is James. Andrew is on camera. Tara is in the control box. And my partner, Brent, and his partner, Phil, who was supposed to be on the other vehicle, are probably well into their third Saturday evening drink by now. Their vehicle has broken. Any questions or comments you might have, and if you'd like to tell me what this tree is, hashtag Safari Live or questions at wildearth.tv. Hi Tanya, you've had a nasty experience with tick bite fever, or rickettsia, I think is the medical term. I also use the term tick bite fever. Some people get knocked harder than others do by it, and normally it's just a very simple case of a course of antibiotics that fix you up. I've had it 3 or 4 times. Sorry, Andrew's had it 5 times. I thought he was telling me to stop, or threatening me with his fist. I couldn't tell exactly. But Andrew's had it 5 times. It's probably affected him quite badly. He's a bit odd. But for me, he's not really odd at all. For me, after I picked it up and took a course of antibiotics, I was fine. But I do know that it can help. It can recur if it's not treated properly. And it can affect some people very badly, and you can have horrible neurological symptoms. So I'm sorry you had that experience, but were you to come out again, I think it's unlikely that you'd have that sort of experience again were you to contract tick bite fever. And certainly, I've never had it twice in the same area. So I've had it down in Natal was the first time I got it. Then I got it first time I was at Londolozi, which was just down the road here. And first time I was at Ngala, which is just up the road. I think those are the 3 times I've had it. And I didn't have it again in those areas. Although you do sometimes at the beginning of summer when the rains come, you get the ticks come out, and I sometimes used to get a sort of headache for a day. And that was normally after I'd been bitten a few times by the ticks. So we're going to go past Gari Waterhole now, and just onto the area where apparently there was a male and female leopard track moving up and down. Possibly Karula and Mvula reacquainting themselves and reigniting some leopard romance. Just going to dust off the lens. It's either dusty or it's the sunshine. We're not sure. And now we're just waiting for a game drive vehicle to come down off Gari Dam wall, and then we'll move on to it. Here they come. We'll just find out about those tracks from them. Ah, yeah. Minjan. Vari minko zo maing miko. Di. Awatwang. I'm not ready. Oh, okay. Swati kam sabi. Okay. Kapunan. Enjoy. That poor fellow is operating without a radio, so he's on his own. Right, we have a first answer to our almost impossible tree quiz, and I'm glad to say it has remained almost impossible. We've got RC from the Netherlands, or Holland, and he'd like to have a slightly closer look at it, Andrew, if you don't mind, and then we'll swing to the buffalo that are at Gari Dam here. It's not a milkberry RC, it's not Manilkara machisa. I'll tell you what to look out for. What you need to look out for, if you happen to be interested in trees, and I'm sorry if you aren't, it's a compound leaf, okay? And it's got what we called a winged rachis. That's a stupid way of saying that the stalk has got little sort of wings on it. I don't know if you can see that. And it's got a much larger, there we go. It's got a much larger member of the same genus that also likes to live on termite mounds, where we found this one. One more clue, and that's decapitate, I will tell you. Decapitate. Right. Here we are at Gari Waterhole, where there are 4 beefaloes sitting in sort of a contemplative evening beefalo stance. That's what they like to do this time of the day, have a bit of a cud chew. Sure, they shoot the breeze a bit with each other. And just, oh, what is that stalk? Can you see him, Andrew? There's a saddle-billed stork there. That, Andrew, that's brilliant. Well done. That's otherworldly, that is. Oh, isn't that beautiful? What an incredible sequence of filming. He's not bad, this fellow on the back of the Land Rover, is he? Well done, Andrew. That is this, oh, another one. These are extremely rare storks called saddle-billed storks. If I'm not mistaken, they're endangered. And you can see why they're called saddle-billed, because they have yellow saddles on their bills. Beautiful. That's really special to see, especially with the little beefaloes in the background. Look at the way the light is catching the water there. That's marvelous. Now they'll be looking for frogs and small fish. And this time of the year there won't be many frogs for them. So it'll mainly be probably catfish, small catfish. That is really gorgeous. Check. You can tell which one is male and which one is female from the color of the eye. One of them has a yellow eye, but I've forgotten which one is which, so I'll just quickly look in my field guide here. It is the female with the yellow eye. Looks like she's sort of got eye makeup on around her eye. So you won't pick it up from there. I'll tell you which one that is. I will look at it with me powerful binoculars. It's the male behind and the female closest to us. She's got a sort of a yellow wattle around her eye. And also that splash was probably a catfish. Yeah, you can see the ripples just radiating out. Yes, it's got the male quite interested, that has. Well, there's a jackal, Andrew. I'm not sure if you can get the jackal. He's miles away. Can you see him? He's straight over the top of the clearing there, well spotted. I love to see jackals. They're not that common in this area. The sort of bandits of the bushveld. Let's go and see if we can have a better look at him. He's still going right there, Andrew. Yeah, he's just behind the worry bush. That's really nice to see. Bye-bye storks. Bye-bye beefaloes. There he goes. Now, this time of the day, the earth is taking its deep breath in for the anticipation of the night, and that jackal's a really nice sort of indicator of that happening. Kathy Ward in Memphis, there was a go-away bird calling in the background there. Thank you for that. And there was also a couple of Franklins. Just going to try and speed along and see if we can't get a better view of the jackal. We don't see them very often here. Try not to blind ourselves going into this magnificent setting sun. I've lost him. I've lost him. Probably hiding in some of these logs here. We'll just have a quick drive around this clearing and see if we can't find him. Otherwise, we'll leave and head towards where the leopard tracks were. enormous hole there. I nearly drove us. We have, astonishingly, a correct answer to the tree quiz. Our winner is the inimitable Raisa. Raisa, you're a tree genius. I might have to ban you from further participation in the impossibly hard tree quiz. It is a dwarf bourbean, or Scotia capitata. Well done, Raisa. There were some monkeys alarm calling around the lodge there just now. Not. Can you get him? Sorry. I think I just saw one of those it's a green wood hoopoo, go into a hole in a knot of this tree. That's him calling there. I'll just see if I can get a little bit further forward. It's quite funny to find a nest for them. They tend to nest in tree holes, in little flocks. No, not that one. So the zoomies will keep an eye out on the Gari Dam cam. And there are some monkeys alarm calling there, not very enthusiastically though, so it might just be people in the camp that they're shouting at. But it could be a leopard. So we're on to this area that we call quarantine clearing. And just as the sun starts to set, it's a bit of a nip starting to come into the air. Andrew's putting his jersey on. We've got something from Brent coming through. Hold on. Brent coming. There seems to be some monkey alarm calling just in front of WildEarth camp. Maybe we could go and have a look there. Thanks very much. So Brent is now on the trail. Hopefully be some sort of help. Hello Laura in Indiana. Quite a few questions about the diseases around here, and especially the tick bite fever. You want to know if we get Lyme disease out here? The answer is no, we don't. That is a tick-borne disease of, as far as I know, only North America, or maybe South America as well, but we don't get it out here. And I think our tick bite fever is far less severe than Lyme's disease, as far as I know, unless you get it really badly, like some people do. Hello, Jacques. You'd like to know if animals ever get tick bite fever? Not in the strictest sense. Most of them have got some form of natural immunity to it, but certainly domestic animals will get something called biliary, which is a tick-borne disease, and it can certainly cause quite substantial harm. Horses get it, and I know that dogs and cats will get it too. And I think out here, though, the wild animals are fairly immune to it. Enough ticks, biting, and with injecting toxins into an animal without being cleaned by oxpeckers or rubbed off on trees or something like that, they will definitely cause a problem. So we have got some monkeys. Those monkeys are starting to sound a lot more enthusiastic, so we're going to go and check that area. We're just going to stop here and... No, we're not going to stop right here, sorry. Wrong spot. Stop. Hi Pamela, jackals, you want to know in comparison to the North American fox, are they the same family? Yes, they are. They're part of the Canidae or the canid family, the dog family. Absolutely, they are the same. Let's see if I can't get you a little picture of the sunset here while I put my jacket on. Stop here briefly. Apparently some of you saw Brent as we went past him. He is out tracking something. I in fact did not see Brent, so thank you for pointing that out to me, and we are grateful for the help that he's giving us. And so when either of us have time off, or if Scott's here and we sort of rotate the drives, we'll often go out and try and find something and just help out a bit and just be out in the bush. And that's what Brent's doing now. So he's following up on those monkey alarm calls from the other side. We're going to go from this side. And yes, I'm slightly embarrassed that you all saw him and I didn't. Andrew, did you see him?
Yeah, I saw him.
Andrew also saw him. Okay, I'm just going to put my jersey on while you look at the sun going down. And then we'll carry on. Yet another magnificent African sunset. Never get sick of those. Virginia, You want to know if Brent causes mayhem or if he helps. Brent is the quintessential, you'll just excuse me, I'm just going to rinse my mouth out. It's been a long day of talking. Brent of course is the quintessential maverick, which means that he is either causing mayhem or he's always helping, but he's always good value whatever he happens to be doing. So he's great fun to have around. Never know what you're going to get next though. And yes, some comments that the monkeys may have been alarm calling at Brent. It is possible. I think Brent probably would have realized that though. So hopefully they were alarm calling at a leopard. There's a kudu, not looking particularly alarmed about life. A great number of kudu. We'll just stop here and have a quick look at them, and it's nice to listen at this time of the day. Oh, that's lovely, Andrew. Well done. And there's a drongo following the beautiful kudu. Drongo always start to call this time of the day. Right, we'll wander gently along. In fact, I think we should probably just sit here for a little bit longer and just listen. I don't hear the monkeys calling anymore. Terry in upstate New York, you want to know if the storks are migrating? The answer is they'd be very late if they were, because we're now almost at winter solstice, which will be the 22nd, I think, of June, if I'm not mistaken. Or I think it's the 22nd. You're welcome to correct me. It'll be the same as the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere. And so, no, they're not migrating. They are resident storks. Some of them migrate. The white stork migrates off to Europe, but that one stays here, and they nest in trees in the sort of very flat, ill-constructed platform of sticks. We do have one stork that nests in cliffs. That's the black stork, and they do fly over here from time to time, but more closely to the mountains. Just going to go around the corner here. There is some movement of something. I seriously doubt it's a leopard unless these kudu have become totally deaf. No, it's a big bull, big kudu bull. Oh, he is huge. Lovely big kudu. Now, if you're a hunter and it was your desire to shoot an animal as glorious as that, well, firstly, you'd need your head red, but secondly, that would be an ultimate species or individual to get, because his horns are so widely set apart. He's a huge kudu bull, that. I'd say he's at least 7 or 8 years old, which is about as long as they normally live. Hello, Pamela. You want to know if kudu can hear well? Well, with ears like that, if they couldn't hear well, that'd be something of a waste. Absolutely they can. You surmised totally correctly that they have big ears, and all the better to hear you with. It's like Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother. And that's because they live in thick bush. So if you look at the other tragelaphid species, so the nyala or the bushbuck, they also have very big ears, and that helps them in the thick bush where they browse. Very good supposition, and I mean, often the most obvious answer out here is in fact the correct one. Hello, Brenda in Washington State. I hope it's not raining at home. You are not going mad. Fear not. You are not going mad at all. You always thought that waterbuck were grey. And now you think they're brown every time you see them. The answer is that they're in fact a grey brown. And the more into winter we get, the dustier it will get, and so the kind of browner their grey colors will become. In summer, if they're around the water and it's clear, remember the light is also very golden at the moment, and so everything grey will appear slightly browner than it actually is. So they are grey, but they are tinged with brown. You are not mad, do not worry. And for those of you who don't know, she was worried she was going mad, but she isn't. In fact, they are grey-brown. Very nice question from Patty in Michigan. Patty, I'm going to just dedicate a bit of time to this question. So if you'll hold on, I'm just going to wait till we're down at the bottom of the hill here. Important to keep an eye out for the leopard tracks in the drainage lines. Okay, Paddy, it's nice to have another little listen. This is a roundabout where the monkeys were alarm calling, possibly at Brent. I alarm call when I see Brent sometimes. Paddy, you ask a fascinating question. You say that when you were on safari, you felt like you had a target on your back in the bush, and that you wanted to know how long would it take you to get comfortable on foot in the bush. I'll tell you a little story about me personally. When I came to the bush, the only reason I came to be in the bush was because I had a girlfriend at the time who I was terrified of, and she said that we had to come and work in the bush, so I said, okay, yes, that's what we'll do. I wanted to be a musician. And so when we came to the bush, I was clueless. I had no idea what was going on out here. And one of the most terrifying things that I had to do during my training was 10 days of unarmed walking. So I had to spend 10 days in the bush, going back to the camp every night, but every day would go out and walk roughly 20 kilometers, which is how many miles? 20 kilometers is roughly 16 miles, 14 miles, in the bush with a radio and a first aid kit. And that was all, alone. And initially, it was an absolutely terrifying experience. I mean, I used to walk at snail's pace, listening and smelling and looking under every tree that I could find. I thought that there were going to be hundreds of animals leaping out to murder me at every second. But you slowly start to realize, especially as you start to see animals on foot, that they are terrified of us. And they see us completely as a predator. They don't see us as prey. And that's the crucial thing to realize. And once you've come to terms with that, you still got to be careful, because you don't want to corner an animal unnecessarily. You don't want to threaten an animal unnecessarily. But as soon as you come to terms with the fact that they see you as a predator, you could walk in relative safety in the bush. And then I became a lot more comfortable, and now I'm very comfortable walking around here. That's not to say I'm not very aware on foot in an area like this. So you saw Brent on foot there. He'll smile and he'll wave, but he's very aware of what's going on. It's not like having a Sunday stroll down a city road. He's very aware of what's going on, but in a very comfortable way. So it would take you, I don't know, Paddy, maybe some people it takes a few days, some it takes months. It just depends on the individual. But you don't have a target on your back at all when you're on foot. Nice question. Thank you for that. Let us carry on. That's starling. Stop here. Andrew, who's proved to be the greatest cameraman in the Lowveld, has now spotted a glorious starling. Beautiful glossy starling, looks like a Cape glossy starling. Oh, that's beautiful. It's actually a greater blue-eared glossy starling. Isn't that beautiful? The iridescent color. While we're looking at it, Bugsy, you wanted to know about the kudu and the white flash on the back of the tail. That white flash is a following mechanism. It's calling now. Isn't that lovely? He's making a strange rattling noise, which I've not heard them do before. Going. So, Bugsy, in general, any time that you have a flash of anything on the back end of an animal, it's normally some kind of following mechanism. So the kudu will do it. They'll stick it up like that so that they can follow each other through thick bush. Also, they might also flick it up, and then what that does is sort of alert the predator to a flash, and then they'll fold it down again, and then the predator won't really know where it's disappeared to. But basically, anything on the back end of an animal, we think, is some sort of following mechanism. Oh, that's a really nice shot of a greater blue-eared glossy starling. One of 5 starling species we get here. Thank you, Andrew. Well done. Again. Andrew is on fire today. Not literally, of course. That happened to Wendy the other day. where Phil was nearly incinerated. He wasn't really, don't worry. Rocky fella, a question from you. I'm disinclined to answer your question after the mark you gave me for my nyala dance, but I'm going to anyway. I'm feeling magnanimous today. Scorpions, you say, are they more dangerous than cats when you're on foot? No, not really. I've never met anybody who's been stung by a scorpion while walking. I have met plenty of people and been with people who've been stung by scorpions picking up logs. That's the main time you're going to be nailed by a scorpion out here. And the easy way to tell, of course, and I mean a lot of people know this, is that a venomous scorpion normally has a fat tail and thin pincers, and a non-venomous scorpion will have a thin tail and fat pincers. And most of the scorpions we get out here fall into the latter category, but there are a couple of nasties. And I know one person who was stung by a parabutid scorpion, which was one of these big, a little one like that with a fat tail, almost drips with venom. And they spent a couple of days in hospital, but that scorpion was found in the room. So what you have to do is be careful of them in your room or in your shoes or things like that, but not generally while you're walking. Safari, I'm going to ask you to clarify your question. Thank you for it. You want to know if that starling is the same kind of grackle that you get in the US. I'm not sure what you mean. Are you referring maybe to the European starling that you get in the US? I'm not sure what a grackle is. Perhaps you might like to just give me a little bit more of a hint and I'll try and explain. I'm quite fascinated to know what a grackle is. I have had an answer from... Okay, so I've had a bit of information from Tara, the infinitely sharp and multitasking director in the Final Control, and she says that a grackle is a passerine, which is a songbird, but only found in the New World. So that would indicate that we don't get them out here. Africa is considered the Old World, the New World being North and South America. Andrew has now put on another 7 layers of clothing. He's also put on a balaclava. So he doesn't look quite like a bandit from the West anymore so much as a bank robber. Might make him do his nyala dance dressed like that. Yvonne on Twitter, I think you've stumped me. I used to know this word and I don't anymore. You want to know, there's a word for a flash of color like that then disappears. I'm going to make a guess. Something for those of you who don't know, something like a grasshopper does it. And they've got bright orange on the inside of their legs. And when they're just startled by a predator, they'll flash out like that and startles the predator. And then they fall down and they're camouflaged again in the grass. And I think that's called aposematic coloration. That might be warning coloration, but I'm not sure. Yvonne, if you'd like to take to the interweb, I'd love to know the correct answer to that. Mary in Boston. Sorry, I was just looking out the window here. Not the window, looking out of the vehicle quickly. Just following on the starling conversation. You do indeed get starlings in the US. I've seen them in New York, actually, while waiting for a ferry to Ellis Island. But those are European starlings from Europe, normally. I don't think you get indigenous species there, but I might be entirely wrong about that. Here we have Brent Leo Smith, the inimitable. Hello, Brent.
Hello, Jamesy. I've got bad news.
What?
There's lion tracks across right here into the north.
So we are not going to see any lions this evening, I'm afraid. Brent, as you can see, is now in a vehicle. Brent, I had to admit that I didn't see him. Yes. And there is Phil.
Yes.
Right, we're going to carry on. Could you find us a left?
I'm trying my best, I promise.
Thank you very much. As you were.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. So, I suppose some of you have been on drive with Phil, but have never seen him. That's what he looks like. Look at that cloud there, Andrew. I think you can get him. Sorry, I'm just going to stop here. I love the scenery type stuff. Just hoping we can get the beautiful, beautiful cloud. Oh, look at that. Look at that beautiful cloud. That's beautiful. Lewis Schreiber, thank you for all of the information you've given me on the grackle. You say there are 2 species at least that migrate, and they tend to bully a lot of the songbirds. Doesn't sound very nice to them at all. There was a question, sorry, I forgot to answer it, that asked about the starlings that migrate from here and why some do and some don't. none of our starlings migrate. We've got the Cape Glossy starling, the greater blue-eared starling, the Birchall starling, oh sorry, I'm talking absolute rubbish. There is one that migrates. The plum-coloured starling or violet-backed starling will migrate. Sorry about that. And then there's the wattle starling, which is sort of nomadic bird. So they don't necessarily migrate, but they don't stay in one area for any length of time. The plum-coloured starling or violet-backed, and why it migrates versus some of the others, I don't know enough about it, I'm afraid. I can only assume that there's some sort of food that it finds that, I think it's an intra-African migrant, that it finds in further north in Africa that we don't have here during winter. I can try and find out for you though. It's a great question. Hello, little Gracie, in age just 7 in the Dayton's Children's Hospital. I have a little cousin called Gracie who's also about 7 years old. Gracie, you want to know, do we have animal hospitals like the one you're in out here? We don't really. We do have some places where we send sick animals, but it's very difficult to let them back into the wild once they've been out of the wild. And so sometimes we do that and we send them there and then they stay there for the rest of their lives. And sometimes what we do is we just let nature take its course. And unlike us humans, the animals seem to be really good at getting better on their own without doctors. And sometimes they don't, but most often they do. They get better on their own. So no hospitals out here, but maybe we do bring a doctor out sometimes for special cases like for wild dogs, and then sometimes we take animals to live in sort of special places where they can recover and then they live out their days in comfort. Difficult to put an animal back in the wild though. Thanks for your question, Gracie. Keep them coming. Right. Angie from Dayton, Ohio, you said that the coloration I described is called disruptive camouflage. That sounds quite likely to me. Perhaps you'd like to just clarify then what aposematic coloration is, and save me the trouble of it when I get home. Otherwise, I'm going to look it up again. But thank you very much for that. I'm going to stop here for a brief period, and if you wouldn't mind zooming down the road there towards the horizon. Right, so we have an answer to the aposematic coloration here. You're off the hook there in Dayton, Angie. Diane, thank you for that. Aposematic coloration is in fact warning coloration. So if something like a monarch butterfly is sick, not as sick, is poisonous. I don't know why I thought they were sick. It's poisonous, and that red and black coloration is an excellent way for it to warn potential predators that they will get sick if they eat that animal. So that's aposematic coloration. Thank you very much for that, Diane. So we look off to the west there towards my favorite mountains. You can see it's very hazy. And that's because it's been chilly, and in the villages there's often very little in the way of electric heating or cooking, or electricity for cooking. and so people use wood fires, and that's what you're seeing there. You're seeing the haze from the wood fires, and it's just very pleasant of an evening to go into those villages and go and sit at one of the pubs, or shebeens as we call them here, and drink a quart. That's the only thing that they seem to serve beer in, and just the lovely smell and atmosphere around the villages when those fires are burning and cooking the evening meal. And the sound of kids playing in the street is almost otherworldly when you now grow up in modern cities where that's often not possible in South Africa. Isn't that nice? We didn't get our completely very silent sunset, so we've taken it now. Andrew and I like to do that every so often. Right, we'll move along slowly, if you don't mind, Andrew.
Nope.
Joanne from Arizona, you again hit me with something of a difficult topic to discuss while driving a Land Rover, but I'm going to do my best. You say that the starlings you get out there where you are, I'm actually not going to take this road, sorry, I've changed my mind, looks similar to the African starlings. And you say they represent but although they're not related, so they represent something called convergent evolution. And would I please discuss this? I'm going to do my best. Convergent evolution basically means similar strategies to different environmental conditions that animals in different parts of the world will evolve. So, a great example would be the emu, which is an enormous ostrich-type bird, and the ostrich. They are completely unrelated birds, and yet they have evolved the same strategies. I think the emus from South America, they have evolved the same strategy to survival in totally different areas. Another good example would be a cactus and the euphorbia. Those are two plants. So the cactus is found in the Americas, and it's a succulent with spines that's adapted to desert environments or very dry environments. And the euphorbia is the African equivalent that has evolved in Africa with spines. It's a succulent, and it also lives in very dry conditions. So those are two nice examples of convergent evolution. Very nice question. Thank you for that. Another question from Dayton Children's Hospital from Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, for your question. You want to know, can animals sense fear? The simple answer is yes, they can, but it's not quite as simple as that. They don't smell fear, I don't believe. Yeah, there may be. You know, I say that, and as I say it, I'm not sure that I'm being truthful. When you are fearful, what your body does is it releases a hormone called adrenaline. And adrenaline might have a smell and you will start to sweat, obviously, and that may be able to be picked up by animals with very sensitive senses of smell. But mainly what animals sense is your body language. They can feel some kind of, they will sense quite quickly from your body language whether you're standing up and being dominant about something or if you're cowering and afraid. And that's mainly how they sense fear. Sorry about that, everybody. You're back with us now. We just went through a bit of a dead spot. Thankfully we're back, otherwise it would have been a blackout without old Wendy. Sarah, I forgot the second half of your question, and I seem to remember it was quite a good one. So I'll get it again and then I will answer it. Oh yes, right. I got it now. Gorillas. You want to know if we get gorillas in this area? No, we don't. Gorillas like forests and lots of rain. So gorillas are found in Central Africa, in the Congo Basin, in Uganda, in Rwanda, and possibly in Burundi. So it's mainly the Congo, all in those thick Central African rainforests. That's where we find gorillas. And out here it's much too dry. So the only primates we get out here are the monkeys, some baboons, and something called a bush baby or a galago. That was a baby scrub hare that went charging off down the road. Here's a nice little question for you. Anybody, especially anybody at Dayton, do you know what a baby rabbit is called? Or a baby hare? There he is, Andrew. That is a young scrub hare. I don't want to shine on him too much. I don't want to blind him. Look at him, he's coming to see us. Isn't that sweet? That's beautiful. Look at that. They so seldom sit for you like this. It's really unusual. Now, a scrub hare doesn't live in a burrow like a rabbit does. It lives in something called a form, which is just a depression of sticks and, oh, that's so sweet. Sticks and grass, and while he's standing there now, look at how long his back legs are. And his front legs. Now, a rabbit, can you still get him there, Andrew? He's too close.
A little bit.
I got him. Now, a rabbit tends to have much sort of bigger back legs and small front legs because they hop. This animal, the hare, will run. Wash him a little bit with the light. Sorry about that, everybody. We lost you there. We don't know why we lost you there. It may have been some kind of a hex that the scrub hare put on us. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, a scrub hare baby is called a leveret. And also, I think a rabbit baby is also called a leveret. So our plan at the moment is just to see what we can possibly spot. Just a little nervous of the power on Jigger at the moment, so I'm not going to use too much spotlight. We've got the lights, but they don't run off the battery. I'm going to drive nice and slowly because we're on a bit of a crest here, which means that it's a bit warmer than down in the dips. And I, unlike Andrew, am not dressed for bank robbing. So we've done a full loop around where those leopard tracks were, and I'm afraid we've failed to come up with anything at this stage. But what will happen is that leopards will move around a huge amount if they are mating especially. Right, so we've got some very nice clarification, and I've been taught a small lesson here. A baby rabbit is indeed a kit, that is correct. I remember that now, but a hare, as many of you pointed out, is a leveret. And apparently, thank you Gilly in Wisconsin, you've been a mine of information. In fact, I think you normally are a mine of information. And it's always lovely to learn on these drives. As much as I'm blethering away at you guys, it's great to have you talking back at me with fantastic information. So a kit is in fact short for a kitten, and therefore a litter of kittens is the collective noun apparently for kittens. We've got a nightjar on the road in front of us, and obviously it's flown away. Sorry about that, Andrew. Exactly where you focused, he flew off. Lily from Dayton Children's Hospital. You've said, is it a bunny, a baby rabbit, or a baby hare? Not a bunny, a kit or a leveret. Bunny, thank you for your answer though. Keep them coming. A bunny is a sort of slang term, I suppose, which means a light or easy term for a rabbit, and especially when we talk about fluffy rabbits that we like to cuddle. Just say the word bunny a few times and it's the kind of animal that you'd really like to have a cuddle with. I'm going to stop here for a second, and we're going to have a listen to the night, and I'm just going to give a quick explanation about something quite crucial. We've had a question from Pittsburgh, and it's a good one. It's got to do with the rhino and why we don't show them, and are they around? We do see them from time to time in this area, certainly not as commonly as we used to. And the reason we don't show them is indeed because of the poaching pandemic that's going on in the area. We need to be very careful from our point of view that we don't give away their locations. And likewise, the other gamers, the game drives around here never mention them on the radio. And so we're very careful about showing them. We're very careful about, especially on video, because anybody could be watching this. And so, yeah, it's a good question. They are around, not as common as they used to be. It is the Greater Kruger National Park, so programs like dehorning them and that sort of thing become very difficult in such a vast area. So sadly, that is why. We're hoping one day that will change, but at this moment, unfortunately, it doesn't show too many signs of abating. So very sadly, not too many rhino are going to be shown on WildEarth for the next little while. And it's such a pity because they are the most fantastic animals. I find them absolutely fascinating. Real living fossils, prehistoric looking and amazingly odd behavior. I mean, they're fantastic animals, and so sad that we can't take them to you and bring them to you because of the ridiculous notion that the keratin in their horns can form some kind of healing potion for colds and flu and various other things. Anyway, that's the sad story, but we have lots of other delights to show you, and indeed we do show them to you. So we're going to carry on in that vein and see what else we can find. It is a beautiful night out here, lovely and balmy-ish warm, and I say balmy-ish warm. Lovely stars out, beautiful sunset in the distance, and we'll just carry on and see if we can't spot a cat or two on our way in. So, a lovely question about wild dog puppies and whether they're denning or not. So, a few of you would have seen that pregnant alpha female the other day when I was charging through the bush after them. And they are denning somewhere. I'm pretty sure that pack would have found a den. Unfortunately, it's not on Juma. There is a pack actually quite close to here on the reserve I used to work called Nyala, and in fact, in the 5 years I was there, we had 3 years when there were wild dogs denning there, and they're denning there again. Not the same pack, but I think, if we're not mistaken, this pack of dogs is probably in the Manileti just north of us, and denning there. But that means, what that does mean, that wherever they are, they will be hunting out from the den. And so the chances of seeing the adults more regularly are fairly good. Pamela, a lovely question, especially for a gentle night drive. To do with the history of the Sabi Sands, you would like to know, has it always been a game reserve? And sort of attached to that, have there always been wild animals here? The answer is it has not always been a game reserve. A lot of the farms that make up the Sabi Sands now were excluded from the Kruger National Park when it was proclaimed in 1926. And then various people tried to run cattle on them. They tried to look for gold on them. They tried to, I think at one stage they used them for there's huge clearings out in the south where they tried to clear the trees for wood and that sort of thing. But eventually, especially the cattle farming, that was the closest they came to making a financial success. Eventually they gave up on that because there were often wild animals around. Lions used to get out of the Kruger Park quite regularly, and lions are not ideal on a cattle farm. In fact, they're fairly bad for a cattle farm. And so there have always been a number of wild animals in the area, but nothing like the number of wild animals they have here now. And then in the 60s, those farms were then bought up by families and people who wanted to come on holiday, and often by hunters who came to shoot animals here. So there were animals around. And then in the 60s and 70s is when the ecotourism side of things started and the hunting stopped, and the photographic safari industry in South Africa was then born. All right. And in Pennsylvania, you'd like to see a few stars. It's not as bright as it's going to get, but we'll try some. Andrew, can we try Venus over there? I think that's Venus, that bright star there that Andrew's found. This is a beautiful picture, regardless of whether it's Venus or not. I'm pretty sure that's Venus. And you know, this time of the year is the only time of the year that we in this part of the world, gee, that's a lovely frame, Andrew, that we in this part of the world can see the Big Dipper when it's really dark. So if Andrew was to pan off to the right, which I'm not going to ask him to do, in the northern sky we can see the Big Dipper sitting on the horizon come the sort of middle of winter. So we'll see it now. And then in summer we don't see it at all. And then Andrew, I don't know, let's try our most famous constellation. If you swing, I'm going to really test you now. If you swing all the way around from where you are there, okay, so if you face the horizon, then I'll tell you when to swing up. Yeah, now swing up. There we go. Right, stop there. Now, yeah, that's it. Now just lift a little bit more. That's it, stop. Okay, now, I hope that you can all see that. I hope that you can all see that. That is the Southern Cross. The two on the... We've lost it. Can you still hear us?
Yep, they're still there.
So basically, I know you can't see that particularly well, and we'll have to wait for it to get a bit darker, but that is the Southern Cross. You can see those, the three stars at the top of the picture there, the top right, are three of the 4 or 5 that are in the Southern Cross. The others you can't see because of the haze in the sky and the amount of light. There's still quite a lot of light from the horizon. Now, what you need to do quickly, if you want to find south, is you take a perpendicular bisector from the 2 pointers, which are the 2 stars in the bottom left of your screen, and then a straight line through the long axis of the cross, and where they meet you've got celestial south, and drop down to there, from there to the horizon, and you've got due south. So we're basically facing the camera due south. When winter gets a bit later, as we go through the year and it gets a little bit later there, then now you can see all 4 stars there. Great stuff, Andrew. So that is the Southern Cross, the famous Southern Cross. And those are the 2 pointers. Now there is one state in the United States from which you can see the Southern Cross. I think I've asked that question once before. So you can tell me what it is, and see if you're paying attention to my ramblings. Right, So those are basically the most of the star we're going to get tonight, I'm afraid. There's another one above. Andrew, I'll just... oh, that's quite nice, actually. Let's just try and get the one. You see the big knobthorn in front of us? There, that one there. That is the brightest star in the night sky. It's called Sirius, or the dog star. Now, it's not as bright as the planet to the right, which of course was Venus, but that Sirius is the brightest star in the night sky, so anything brighter than that must be a planet. And that's part of the constellation Canis Major, or the large dog, big dog. And just below that is my favorite constellation, which you can't see and we won't see again until summertime, and that's Orion. Isn't that a wonderful color? It's the most gorgeous color there. So I don't think we're going to go anywhere from here. I think we should just sit here gently until we've got a few minutes left and just appreciate the sounds. I'm just going to be quiet for about 20 seconds and you can see if you can hear anything. It's very unusually silent at the moment. Can't hear any birds, can't hear any hyenas. So, Natasha and Rudy, two answers to the American state in which I can see the Southern Cross. It is not Alaska, Natasha. I'm sorry about that. It is the southernmost American state, which of course is Hawaii. Well done, Rudy, for that. Right, so we're going to wrap it up now. I'd just like to thank you again we've had a quiet drive on the animal front, but your comments and questions have kept me rattling on for 3 hours, and thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. I've learned so much today, especially. We've done some great questions and had some great comments. A big up to Andrew today for his camera work. Incredible job with those stalks and some beautiful colors that he's managed to pick up through the camera. Tara, who's been multitasking like a machine off in the control room, thanks to her. And to Brent and Phil for trying to find some animals. And to Eugene, who's no doubt probably bashing Wendy with a hammer at this stage of the day. So thank you for being with us. It's been a lovely day in the Lowveld. It's a lovely warm evening. And I'm just going to leave you with a sense of the incredible silence and the incredible peace of this African evening. Thank you very much for being with us, and we will see you in the morning. And you can just hear some crickets. But otherwise it's completely silent. See you tomorrow.